Good morning. I'm your host, Dr. Jamie Fuentes. I'm here with Fire Shield Consulting online courses where we are on demand on your time. If you need to find additional information, you can look us up at fireshieldconsulting.com. Hi, welcome to MTSS Leadership Series for Fire Departments. This is episode 1. I'm your host, Dr. Fuentes. We are going to be looking at creating your teams and what exactly is MTSS for the fire department or organization. So sit back, relax, subscribe so that you don't miss any more of these great videos, and let's get started. So the agenda for this video is simple. We're going to go over the overview of MTSS, what it is and what it does, the components of MTSS, how they all fit together, goal setting, and your teams. Today we're going to be looking at the MTSS, which stands for Multi-Tiered System of Supports. We're going to look at the what, the why, and the how to see how it all fits together and how it can impact your organization. So a multi-tiered system of supports is a framework with a tiered infrastructure that uses data and goal setting to promote growth and performance. It includes employee retention, equipment maintenance, budget development, and grant resources to improve the yearly outcomes of the department or organization. MTSS has been proven to improve outcomes for all departments. They address unmet needs of the community in subgroups, and the silo systems to ensure processes are more effective and connected. What that means for you in plain English is that MTSS is a system of supports for the organization so that everyone has a common voice, everyone has common goals, and the whole department works toward the betterment of the department. MTSS is a great approach for organizations. So it helps to move all employees towards progress regardless of the current level that each employee is at. They take a whole group approach to supporting the department and the community. Everyone is on the same page as far as communication. Everyone has the same goals, and everybody's working toward the same accomplishments. It is easy under MTSS to comply with all federal, state, and local policies, and it's a great way to ensure that you're getting the best insurance ratings you can for your areas. MTSS is a great organizational tool. It uses teaming, which is proven to increase data analysis and adjustments. It uses core, supplemental, and intensive interventions for organizations, and it helps with tracking effectiveness, fidelity, and attendance. All of these things can work together to improve an organization's goals and outcomes. Teaming is the MTSS organizational style of leadership. A teaming leader is someone who can set goals for the organization, yet allows the organization to follow through with its own goal setting for the team. So your mission, if you choose to accept it, let's look at the differences between micro and macro leadership and see where teaming fits in. Micro leaders are supervisors who constantly look over employees' shoulders. They are often perceived as controlling and overly critical. Their philosophy is typically do as I say and not as I do, because micromanagers have a hard time in convincing and growing employees for a specific job. For example, they may say, you're not checking off the truck properly, but they can never give you exact details as to what you need to be doing different. They just expect it that you're going to do it the way they do it. So it's very difficult to work with micro leaders, and a lot of people or employees spend too much time second guessing what it is that they want instead of getting the job done. A macro leader, on the other hand, their philosophy is just do something. A micro or macro manager is a supervisor who is aloof, out of touch with daily issues and their employees. They don't know what's going on in the department. They don't really get what's happening. Their employees are having to second guess themselves on if they're doing the job right. There's no guiding leadership, which can be a huge downfall to some organizations. So under MTSS, the teaming leadership style aligns their leadership around shared goals and understandings, easy to identify and correct problems as they arise. That includes business challenges, emergencies, anything that happens within the department. There is always someone on staff to take care of it. There is a shared, transparent communication between all teams and all leaders. So let's take a little brain break. Take a minute to determine your leadership style. Try the quiz. It is not hosted by FireShield or us. It's just a quiz online. It's from idealist.org. And it's 8 questions to determine how you are a leader. Think about it, share your results with others in your organization, and then see if there's anything that you could do better. So take a minute, try the quiz, leave me some information and see how it goes. So I hope you took the time to try the quiz and you learned a little bit about your own leadership style. The MTSS model for teaming leadership, the purpose is to build an organization of problem solvers. So let's take a minute to define actually what teams and roles are. So teaming for MTSS is defined as the roles and communication strategies used in carrying out systematic change within the organization. Another way of looking at it is by hosting teams and defining specific roles, you're able to always move the organization forward and never backward. There's always forward momentum. Under the MTSS model, these are a list of the suggestive teams. You can always have more within your department. It all depends on what your department needs. But these are the ones that pretty much every department is going to have. You're going to start with the leadership team, which consists of the chief, deputy chiefs, and possibly city council or board members. You're going to have an employee and recruitment team, a grants team, a budget team, an equipment and maintenance team. Again, you can always add more teams to the list, but these are the ones that really make the organization progressive and always problem solving, what most organizations need. As mentioned before, the leadership team consists of board or city member reps, the chief, deputy chiefs, and really any other team leader that is part of the other teams. This group of individuals is really responsible for creating the goals, deciding where the organization is heading, and relaying that information to each of the other teams. So the role of the leadership team is pretty simple. They're the ones who are analyzing the data to determine effectiveness of all the other teams. They create the action items or the next steps, things that the teams need to be focused on, monitor what's going on within the department, and communicate all expectations out to the other team groups. They're really responsible for the critical communication pathways and teaming support. So this group is really the one that decides where the organization is going, divides the action steps up to each individual team, and make sure those expectations are communicated effectively. The whole goal is to make sure the organization has shared communication and shared vision. This team is the one that orchestrates that. So the overall purpose of this team, the leadership team, is to really move the work forward for the whole organization. Again, communication on this team is so important. It creates the pathways that are key. It helps to solidify the purpose of the teams for the organization. So let's take a minute to look at another important team. This is the budget team. This should include the chief, deputy chief, captains, battalion chiefs, regular firefighters, and even some volunteers. Now, you don't want every member of your department on every team. The whole purpose of this is to spread out the duties and assignments so that everybody gets to practice what it means to be part of a organization, and you begin to see how things fit together. This is a great way of improving communication, problem solving, as well as building up your firefighters and volunteers to take over these positions later on in their lives. The budget team has a few responsibilities, and these are super important to the organization because it decides the general policies and objectives of the organization based on funding. So it provides the budget guidelines to the remaining teams. It creates and reviews a yearly budget. It receives instructions from the chief and gives instructions to other team leaders. So this team is ultimately responsible for what is bought, purchased, how often, how many, when. It sets the parameters and guidelines for everything funding related that occurs in the organization. The next team I want to address is the employee and retention team. This should also include the chief, deputy chief, a captain, firefighters, and volunteers. This group's responsibility is to really look at how employees are working under this leadership style, what can be done to retain them, because it is super expensive to hire employees young, spend hours and a lot of money on training, and then just to have them leave and you have to start the process over. So the employee and retention team is really focused on how to take employees, keep them engaged in the organization, and move them up through the ranks. So the real purpose of the employee and retention team is to look at and track KPIs, which stands for key performance indicators. And this should be done at each level. So what does it mean to really be a volunteer? What does it mean to be a regular firefighter? What are those expectations? What should you be doing? How much training should you be getting? These are the things that the employee and retention team look at. They create the employee evaluation tools. They conduct onboarding and exit interviews. They track employee morale. They make suggestions for training, fitness guidelines, anything that pertains to all employees within the organization. So I've never had a department come and tell me, we're good on money, we don't need any extras. That does not happen. So one of the main teams that MTSS utilizes is the grant getting team. That's my name for it. I just think it sounds better than the grant team. So the grant getters are the ones who go after and find the low-hanging fruits, the ones that can just add a little bit extra to the budget or to equipment. The grant getting team should include the chief, deputy chief, a captain, firefighters, and volunteers. So the main purpose of the grant getting team is to solve organizations' problems using grant money and not the budget. So their group is responsible for identifying the problems and solutions using grants, write and review grants, collect data for grants, and create a calendar of deadlines for each grant that they submit. Most of the time, there are grants that are easy to get, You can apply every quarter or twice a year. Please, please utilize these grants, even if it's just for shield on a helmet or anything that is not really major, but that the organization needs or wants. So these grants are great, but you really need to stay up and on them. Again, create a calendar, look at the deadlines, make sure you collect data for what you need, write and review and repeat. The next team is the equipment team. This includes the chief, deputy chief, a captain, firefighters, and volunteers. This group is responsible for really updating and maintaining equipment that you use in the organization. So the main roles of the equipment and maintenance team are to earmark funds for equipment, determine the equipment needs of the department, determine the life matrix of the current equipment. So how long are they supposed to last? What is the timeline? What are you looking for before it is time to replace those items? And then really plan and price new equipment. Now, fire departments are notorious for needing things all the time. So the big part of this group is to really look at what is being needed, how much is it going to cost, seeing if it's going to break the budget, or making sure that you're planning in a way that you're getting what you need without going over budget. So that's what the equipment and maintenance team does. Let's look at the next one. So let's take a minute to review. MTSS uses 6 critical components for a cohesive organization. It brings together leadership, capacity building, effective communication and collaboration. Everything is supported by data and problem solving. It's a tiered instruction or intervention system that is data evaluated. So MTSS focuses on 4 core areas within the fire department. It looks at grants, budget, equipment, and employee retention. So MTSS uses 3 tiers of communication. All tiers interact, but the main stages are the chief and the city or board, middle management, firefighters, and volunteers. So the chief interacts with the volunteers and firefighters and volunteers interact with middle management, and middle management could impact or discuss things with the city or board and the chief. So the whole key of MTSS working effectively is to build those layers of communication so that everyone is having a shared dialogue for problem solving and pushing the organization forward. The MTSS leadership style creates action steps at every level. They create and review your teams. Each team creates their goals based on the leadership guidance, and each team decides on the data needed to function as well as the budget. So each team supports and assists each other. So there is no right or wrong way to really set up your teams for MTSS. However, a couple of things that you need to know before you begin setting up your teams is you need to spread the wealth. Teams are effective if you have various levels of leadership on each team. So spread the wealth, tap into each other's talents, create communication norms and forms. So if there's a budget form that needs to go to each team, don't have a different form for employees and retention as well as equipment and maintenance. Have the same forms, work on getting them to where they're functional within your department, and spread them out. So spread the wealth, tap into talents, create communication norms. Thank you for watching. I hope you have found this MTSS video valuable, and it gives you a good grasp of what MTSS is, how it functions, the purpose of it, and how it improves organization through problem solving. Again, thanks for watching. I'm your host, Dr. Fuentes.